I really could use a vacation. Like, I really haven't been on vacation, and let's not think about how long it's been since I've really had a vacation, like, gotten away from it all. It has been a long time. Nevertheless, even though I could use a vacation, I am at peace with not taking one. I am at peace with whatever feels possible and whatever just kind of makes sense based on life circumstances. Like, I don't yearn for things the way that I used to. I had a conversation with Dade the other day, and he was saying how when he was a kid, he did not really get jealous of other kids. And I was impressed because I was always jealous of other kids when I was a kid. Not of like everything and anything, but certain things that I just really wanted, particularly like, okay, I had one friend who had all the Babysitter's Club books. That's a lot of books. She had all of them. Her parents would just buy her every one as they came out. I was so jealous of that. I felt like I never had enough books. The books that I did have, I read those suckers to death. Like, obviously you got the books that are your favorites, but like, I just read, I was very careful with my books, and I just read the crap out of so many of my books. There's no back cover on this one. I could read like 10 books a day, and I only owned like maybe one shelf of them. So anybody who could just have all the Babysitter's Club books that they wanted, because the library never had all of them, they were often checked out, they'd get trashed and pulled out of circulation and not get replaced. That was so magical a concept. Oh my gosh. And then when Super Nintendo came along, the jealousy amped up to an even more intense degree because games were very expensive. I was shocked when my parents got us a Super Nintendo, but then I had to figure out how to get the games. It took me forever to save up to buy Final Fantasy II for the Super Nintendo. I still remember it was $45 used at the local game store. $45 in like 1993 money? That is a lot of money. The inflation calculator says that was the equivalent of $98. So yeah, that was for a used copy, and of course then new games would come out and they'd cost like $60 or $70. So that was just like impossible for me to come up with the money any time other than Christmas. As a kid, I was just a ball of constant yearning for stuff and trips and, clothes, new things of all kinds. I was always jealous, and in the early days of my writing career, I was also very jealous of people who had a lot of financial success and like acclaim with their careers. I was both fortunate and unfortunate enough to know some people who did really well, and it was hard not to feel like I was getting my ego knocked around when I saw friends just like becoming like world famous, and I was just nobody. It's hard. But in recent years, something has changed, and I wanted to talk about that. If you're new here, my name is Lydia Foxglove, and I'm a fantasy author. I have been a professional fantasy author since 2009, and on this channel, I talk about the creative life in general and the writing life in particular, including the emotional and financial aspects of it. So this is why I wanted to talk about this, because you can't get away from the fact that an artistic career is also tangled up with your financial compensation for that career, with feelings of wanting to be acknowledged, wanting to have success, having fear of missing out. Like if you have a friend who goes to a lot of conferences or gets sent on a book tour, has just a lot of success, is able to buy a lot of new and shiny things, while at the same time, the best way to preserve your ability to maintain a creative career is to be very frugal. I have generally been very frugal, and that is why I'm still here. I have more creative freedom than ever, even though I'm not making a lot of money. It's because I was frugal in times of thick and thin. So over the years, I've been trying to make peace with enough. So in the beginning of my career, I was very jealous of others, and I was very ambitious. I wanted to figure out a way to be very successful, to get myself financial stability, but also to feed my ego. I also had fear of missing out. I put myself in a lot of places. I did a lot of traveling to like book conferences and stuff like that so that I would be like in the mix, People would know who I was. I would get to hang out with people in person and like hobnob with editors and agents and authors that were more famous than me. I felt like I needed to network. And with time and maturity, I've realized that while I don't regret those years because it was kind of just fun and cool to be in the middle of like the young adult publishing boom of the 2000s and to be hanging out with like successful authors and publishing industry people in an exciting time for kid lit, teen lit. Like it was fun, but it didn't really do anything for my career. And it was somewhat psychologically stressful to always feel like I was a party crasher. And I think generally that as I have slowly and perhaps somewhat unconsciously trained myself to want less, it has been good for my creative focus. It has enabled me to work on the things that are more passion projects because I've learned to separate the success from the actual project itself. I'm not as hung up as I'm creating on whether this is like marketable, whether this is going to be my big breakout, all that sort of thing. I also wouldn't have this level of financial freedom if I had not worked toward having marketable breakout books. So it's not like there's anything wrong in doing that either. But if you're going to have an entire artistic career, I think it's good to plan that at some point you're going to give yourself that space to work on what's really passionate to you. And that is what I have been trying to get to, what I'm finally kind of at. And part of what helps sustain it now is that I am just embracing a very quiet, simple life where I'm not really traveling or buying anything. And not only am I not doing those things, but I don't really feel a great sense of deprivation anymore. So I wanted to think, like, how did I get to this point? I should say, for starters, that I am very frugal. I'm not like one of those crazy, like, YouTube, I feed a family of 7 on $200 a month, you know, like, I still allow myself some little indulgences here and there on a regular basis, like food things. I have a kombucha addiction, chocolate addiction. Sometimes I get takeout. Sometimes I buy myself a new to me record. I buy books. And everybody has different levels of like what really brings them joy. I don't think there's anything wrong with buying things that truly bring you joy. But what I have stopped doing is chasing highs, always wanting some new novel experience. This certainly didn't happen overnight. I used to want so many things all the time, and I can still sometimes feel that like tickle of like, I want more. I want a cuter house, or I want cuter furniture. I want more vintage clothing, even though I already have a ton. I've been listening to a new album on Spotify, and now I want the actual, real, physical album. I get a little bit into a new hobby, and I want all the things for the hobby. I know a lot of you can relate to that one. I just picked up my markers for the first time in a very long time, and almost as soon as I pick them up, I feel like this isn't enough colors. We got to go to the art store and get more colors. Like, girl, you haven't even touched these markers in like 20 years. Why don't you work with them a little bit before you go buy like 20 new markers? But you know how it is, right? And I'm not sure you can entirely fast track getting to a point where you're at peace with not buying as much. If you're young and you're just feeling that urge to accumulate things, you might not have a lot because you are young, and depending on your financial circumstances leading up to now, you might not actually have accumulated that many things, and you might not have gone through that many cycles of realizing like, I didn't really need this. I didn't really use this, and now it's kind of cluttering up my house. I spent resources on it, and it's just sitting there. But I also do think that it is, at any age, something you have to somewhat consciously work on if you want to get to a point where you're at peace with a simple and frugal life. Because, I mean, we can see it with billionaires, right? They've got billions, and yet they still want to have, like, more power, more control over the entire populace, because just having all the money in the world still isn't enough. Humans always just want more. Like, we're kind of just wired, right, to just whatever we have, we want more. So I feel like for me, the first step was to give myself a taste of what it felt like to have whatever I wanted and have a little success. And to realize, just for starters, that it doesn't really change that sense of yearning at all. You get the thing, you're happy with the thing, you want another thing. You get some success, you immediately want more success. This is like the dopamine hit that we are all struggling not to chase in some cases, or just chasing all the time. And honestly, the people that I know who seem like they're chasing dopamine the hardest are depressed and in debt. So it's not that it's easy to reckon with those emotions, like it's kind of an addiction. So this is not a judgment on them, or to say that they might not be very aware of what they're doing and trying to stop, or, we're complicated people. But in short, this chasing of the next thing, it doesn't really bring you much satisfaction. I think that one thing that has really helped me is trying to do no buy years. I did a video recently about how my no buy year failed, but I am doing better with the no buy year this year. Still failing a little bit, but I think every time you kind of recommit, you kind of learn some new tactics, and you learn a little bit more about yourself, because you're at least trying to think like, why do I buy things? Why do I book this vacation? Do I really need it? What am I really looking for? And sometimes you fail and you take the dopamine hit anyway. But the more that you stop and try to remain conscious of these choices, the easier it slowly gets to not indulge yourself in things that aren't really going to benefit you very much. I also think that you just have to have a plan to fill that empty space with something that makes you very happy. If you're going to deny yourself a bunch of stuff that costs money, but you're not going to give yourself anything in return, like in my mind, if I'm not going to spend money, I've earned back that time. If you don't really treat it like you've earned back time, but you just continue giving yourself a punishing schedule to pay for all the stuff, you're just banking money but never taking any time, then that's going to be miserable. So after a couple of years that I had where I did spend a lot of my money on like stuff, then I realized that it wasn't really making me very happy, and then I started to just save all the money. And after a few years of like building up a comfortable savings account, then I started allowing myself slowly to have more free time that I had denied myself for years. And that's not always easy either. Like, it's been kind of a slow unwinding process of getting back into more like of a playful and relaxed life. But I can see that I have made changes, and I am starting to get there. I am starting to actually reap the rewards of not spending as much money. Then there's just generally, you have to start to acknowledge the difference between things that you love versus things other people have. That sounds kind of obvious, but it isn't always. Like, I watch a lot of people on YouTube, and a lot of them have very cute houses. And I've really had to, I found myself wanting a cuter house based on watching their houses. And I've kind of had to stop and say, like, I would actually really like a cuter house. Like, I used to have a Victorian house, and I really did love like all the charm, even though it was also kind of like a fixer-upper that I couldn't afford to fix. So it certainly wasn't perfect. But I'm not a huge like aesthetics person. I like to just kind of accumulate random stuff from thrift stores that I like and just put it around. I like to let objects come to me rather than like consciously decorating. So I've had to kind of step back and say, this is your personality. This is what comes naturally to you, is to just let your house kind of get little pops of cute items as you find them, not to really worry too much about, creating the perfect design presentation. It's not really me. It's something I started wanting because I was watching more YouTube. And also my house is fine. So you kind of have to stop and question sometimes, to what degree do I really feel a deep passion for this thing versus I've let exterior thoughts creep in slowly based on social media or what my friends have, advertising, etc. And I've also noticed that being very conscious about my social media time really does help me spend less money and want things less. It's amazing. It's amazing how much social media can just infiltrate your whole perspective on like what amount of stuff to have or travel or aesthetics is reasonable. Because on the internet, everything is aesthetic. Everyone has all the stuff and everyone is traveling all the time to the most beautiful places. We know that it's all skewed out of perspective, that we're more likely to see the posts where people have their hauls and their vacations and their beautiful things than you are to have a post that's just like, boring day, whatever, like doing nothing, living on the cheap. I can just, some days I start looking at things on my phone and I can just feel the like, ooh, I wonder how much that costs. Wonder about that thing. You need like constant vigilance to avoid that feeling, which is why in a lot of ways I've just been trying to really manage my social media time and to just constantly remind myself like it's all fake. I spent a certain amount of time just watching videos about like excessive consumerism because after doing that for a while, it started to feel kind of gross to me. So there's one tactic that you can do to kind of flip your brain over from wanting things to just like being sort of averse to wanting anything, is just to go on a binge of videos about like really over the top consumerism, hauls, like the like darker sides of tourism, whatever it is that's kind of your thing that you're always drawn to have in excess. Kind of drown yourself briefly in the more disgustingly excessive side of that thing, and then you start to feel like, I don't want any part of any of this. So it's been a gradual shift in my mindset to where I almost didn't realize how much I had disengaged from that constant desire until I did have this thought like, I think I really could use a vacation, like for real. Because I used to just take a vacation like almost as a matter of course, like there's some kind of time clock, like, uh-oh, better plan a vacation. Now I realize I'm a little better able to separate the like, just the want or the sense that like this is what people do and I'm missing out if I don't do it, from a genuine like, this probably would really benefit my soul if I did take a vacation. I hope that these thoughts help someone out there to feel a little less covetous of things that you don't need. Or maybe you're already in this mindset, but these are just the kind of videos that help affirm what the track you're already on, because that can also be very helpful. If you have any thoughts about wanting things and what things really are worth wanting versus that desire that just gets you nowhere, I'd love to hear any and all thoughts about that. If you'd like more from me, I have a Substack and a Patreon. Same content on both. They both have a free tier as well as a paid tier that gets you access to bonus videos every month and my Discord. And if you'd like to read any of my books, there's a link in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!